all have boxes of memorabilia from our childhood, from our families, from our heritage. And I have Joe Rotella with me today,
Hi, Joy.
Who's going to show us what he did with a box of memories that was gifted to him. Joe, this is the actual box that you got.
It is. When I started this project, I asked my sister for family photos, and she came up with this box just stacked, and there were so many to deal with. It took us a while, but little by little, we're starting to organize them in an archival box, and then I used them to make this album.
And you edited right into that smaller box, so you had to get everything kind of down to a manageable size
We
of
did,
photos.
because if it was overwhelming, I thought, we're never going to scrap this.
Right.
And I wanted to find something that really had meaning, and for some folks, Italian is just about where they're from, but for me, it's our whole culture, our whole family.
Exactly. It's about the food and the people and the family.
It is. So we took those old photos, and we're always nervous that we'll destroy them somehow. So I scanned them all, and I put them on a little CD that's included right with the album, so they're always there. And I started with my family back in Italy in the late 1800s, and I wanted to include our family tree, but I didn't want to take up a lot of space, so I hid it. And it works on both sides. When we come over here, this is about my grandparents came over through Ellis Island in the early 1900s, and I could tell their whole story, even that grandma had $40 in her pocket.
I also love that it says she was healthy.
She was healthy.
Yeah.
Grandpa only had $10. She was rich.
She was, yeah.
And there's a little pocket here with the ship's manifest is tucked inside, and we found that on eBay, but I thought it would be great to have an original manifest.
I agree.
Being Italian's about our faith, so I have some pictures there of our wedding and my christening, and made a little novena candle out of acetate and stamped some embellishments. Family photos, me being a ham. Some
Has that
vintage
changed?
It's true. Such vintage frames, they were just perfect. And this is the page I'm going to show you how to make today. What would Italian be without food?
Right.
And I have my mom's recipes in her handwriting tucked right in there.
I love it. You even still have all the stains and everything. Like she was really using those recipes.
She did really use them.
Yeah.
It's perfect. And then a little bit about my mom as a seamstress, and my dad always had a pencil behind his ear. He was a carpenter. And I just bought a Vespa, so I paper pieced that and where we're actually from. So the whole book is really about being Italian, but we're going to focus on this page today.
I love it, Joe. This is great. Show me how you got started.
Well, I started with 2 pieces of 8x8 solid cardstock, and then I took a double-sided sheet and cut 2 3-inch by 8-inch strips and 2 5x5 squares. And the cool thing is when we turn them over, we have everything we need for our page. So I've done the first page here.
Now, when you say double-sided, do you mean that the paper is actually double-sided?
It is, and it made it really easy for us to use every bit of that paper, and it coordinates really nicely because it came that way right in the set.
Right, so then you just cut it out of one and flip the 2 around, and there you have it.
And there we have it. So I don't need the extra pieces. I'll give those to you. And here's our layout. Now we need a title. And I wanted to incorporate stamping. And sometimes when we stamp, folks get a little bit concerned about how to lay things out. But this is so cool. Just lay them right on your project exactly where you want them. Then use your acrylic block.
I love
and
this
the block
idea.
will pick them right up off the stamp, and we can go ahead and stamp it. And you want to hear that thumping sound, get that nice and juicy. And we're just going to go ahead and press down. And now we have our title ready to go.
Perfect.
So that page is really done. And next I wanted to work on our pocket. So I cut a piece of cardstock that's about 4x7.
Let's go back real quick and look at what this pocket's going to do. It's right here on the other side, and that's where you put that recipe.
The recipes and the journaling.
Love that. Okay.
So I started with a 4x7-inch sheet, and then I just trimmed it with a little bit of brown, so we really had that pocket feel to it.
Okay.
And the next thing we need to do is score it. And I've already scored 2 sides. We just go in about a 1/2 inch on each side. So if you have a scoring tool.
Yep, you can use a ruler and a bone folder, or you can use a paper trimmer.
And you know, all I'm going to do, and we don't even have to measure or be exact, we can go ahead and just score it right down using the bone folder. And now we have all 3 of the bottom sides scored and ready to go. And you just take your scissors and trim right across that at an angle.
And that'll take the bulk away so that when you go to fold it, it won't be so heavy in the corners.
And when we fold it up, there's our pocket.
Perfect sewing tricks and paper crafting.
It's true. So we're just going to put a little bit of adhesive there, and when we're all done, the pocket looks like this.
And the trick is to remember only to put your adhesive on the 3 sides.
Exactly, exactly. And I've made that mistake. So.
I know.
Now, when you're all done, you want to have a slit in your page protector. And a lot of people are concerned about slitting the protector because the slit grows over time. But this is a great little trick to prevent that. If you punch 2 little 1/8 inch holes at the end of the strip, you won't have that problem. So I marked it. I took my good page out. We don't want to punch on top of the good page.
Right, right, right.
And then you can use your eyelet center, and you just give it a little tap, and to
On
give you
either
the
side.
holes on either side, just like I've got there. And that'll really stop that from running. And then we're going to use a straight edge. And I'm using a craft knife, and you always want to be careful when you're handling these. But it's just like connect the dots. If we actually connect the dots,
And give it a little trim.
now we have a slit, and it won't grow over time.
Smart idea, Joe. Thank you for showing us that.
So we're almost done here, and now we'll work on all the embellishments for the page.
Right, so I'll give you back the 2 sides that you need.
And I'll just lay them out here so we can start to assemble
Okay.
some pieces. I started with some photos, and again, I wanted that distressed look, so I cut some mats, and normally we ink the edges just to cover the white cardstock.
Right.
But I wanted it to look kind of distressed and vintage, so I went
So
at
you
a little
just
bit of
went
an
for it.
angle. Yeah, and you can get a little bit kind of sloppy, if you will. And I already did that with all of our pieces here,
Okay.
and this is what they're going to look like. And then I added the photos, and remember, these aren't the originals. I scanned them just so I had them, and then printed them out.
And I like that you even put a little note across the bottom so that now you know who's who.
And that was the challenge when you have a box like that, is how do you identify these folks?
Right.
But the photos will fit perfect on our layout. We'll go ahead and those would be attached just about up there.
Okay.
And we have just a couple more embellishments to make. One was the journaling tag. And again, the same approach. I took a large tag, cut it, and inked it because I wanted that same look.
Right.
And of course, we just put a little bit of twine through the tag, and you'll end up with that finished journaling piece that we put in the pocket.
And then you can write anything you want. This could be about a little family story or another recipe or whatever you'd like right there.
Exactly. And the last piece was I needed a grape arbor. My family grew grapes, and they made wine.
I love it.
And my grandfather always used to tell my father, go in the cellar and get the wine, but whistle the whole way back, because then he knew he couldn't be drinking it. So that story has a ton of memories. So I started with just some brown cardstock, and I used the lattice punch.
Okay.
And I cut a piece about 7 inches long, and I had that little lattice work. And then I made my own grapevine. I took some raffia twine, and this kind of stays in its original shape. You can undo that. Just give it a little twirl, and it'll start to stay straight for you.
And that made it more manageable for
did,
you.
yeah.
Okay.
And I wove that through to give me a little vine. And at
Pretty.
the end, I just took a pencil and curled it, just like a grapevine would curl.
Nice.
And then I needed some leaves. So I never throw away any scraps in our house.
Keep it all.
All of it. We actually have it in file folders sorted by primary color, so it's easy to
Nice.
find stuff. So I took a little leaf punch, and this is a maple leaf, but you know, for me it worked just fine as a grape leaf.
Yep.
So I punched out a bunch of leaves, and we just go ahead and lay them on the vine and then adhere them. And that gave me a bunch of leaves. And then I found an embellishment that came with a bottle of wine, but I really didn't like that because we made our own.
Right,
So I thought,
right.
but I love the grapes. So I went ahead and adhered some grapes.
Nice. So you have that beautiful arbor that goes on the page with all the good stories and the stamping, and you also added a little bit of the label.
I did. My mom always cooked with this every Sunday. This is how we had homemade tomato sauce. So we went ahead and took the label off the can, and we want to be sure it's archival safe. So I sprayed it with a little archival mist. And then to attach it on the page, we just put it right up here in the corner, used our tape runner. And in this case, it's perfectly fine that it overhangs the edge,
Oh, and then you just
because
trimmed
then we
it.
just use your little scissors and trim them right away.
Joe, you have done such a beautiful job of really remembering your history and getting all this information in here. You've done a beautiful album, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all this
Thank
information
you.
with us.
I had a great time.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, Joy.
Joe.